Not a lot. Just enough to remind me why I don't watch it. Oh, this is already funny. Just the headline. The list of moves and actions that are now banned from AEW or need to be approved by the company.
Maybe that's why Nash is pissed off, because he went for Rock and Austin and not try to duplicate him.
Well, it'd be easier to duplicate him. You only have to learn 5 moves.
Like you said, and we've all been saying, Tony Khan, you need a hierarchy, and he gets one, and then we make fun of it.
Because he's sitting back there talking about the Brock match, and it's finally we had a wrestling match. Finally, we got 2 guys telling a story. They weren't outside in the ring the whole time. One of them
was he not watching the same match as we were?
Yeah, those games, man, I would say, like, for me, like, the best ones, I would say, are, like, the ones where they try to get a certain, like, time.
This is my entire IT team right here on screen. Everybody. Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to the Nation Network. This is WrestleChat. I am your host, Vince McSham, and we are going to talk about Night 2 of the WWE Draft, which just wrapped up. Going to be running solo tonight. Well, not totally solo. You guys are here, and that's what matters. Jay is, I'm sure, busy with something else at the moment. It was the last-minute thought that I had to do this, so we'll get through this. It's going to probably be brief anyway, because I just have some basic things and thoughts about what we saw here tonight. By all means, put your comments down below, and let's make this thing a party. Hold on one second while I get things up and running. Here we go. Andrew Roberts is here. Welcome aboard, sir. And now we know it's officially a party because there's a clown in the house. Finally got that fixed from the last time out. All right, so Night 2, Monday Night Raw, the draft. Before we get to the actual draft, just some thoughts of what happened. Let's start with the overall WWE news for the last several days. And the big one is that Drew McIntyre has re-signed a contract, is staying in the WWE, which is about as good as it can get. To have him... The thought of him going to AEW just made me want to throw up. So happy as I can be that he's staying. Feel pretty confident that he's going to become the world champion over at Castle. All good things that are well-deserved. Let's see. We saw Becky Lynch get in the ring tonight with her championship, saying that, hey, it's been 2 years since I've held this title. And I'm thinking, yeah, and you're only holding it because the most talented woman on the roster is injured. So, okay, be that place warmer, and you'll probably be dropping it to live in another couple, another week or so. So that's all good. Stephanie McMahon was announced again tonight. She came out to do the first round of the draft. And my observation is, they just said, here's Stephanie McMahon. She doesn't have a job title. Or if she has one, they're not announcing her with a job title. So I don't know if Stephanie is back in an official capacity or if she's more like a statesman spokesperson type of thing. I'm sure over time we'll find out a little bit more if there's more to be told. But as of right now, they're not announcing her with any sort of corporate title. Let's see, what else did we have? Oh, the best line of the night. Let's go this route. Hold on just a moment. Stick with me on this. Let me get this thing all ready to go here. And then, where's my... Here we go. Now, either he really took one for the team, or their makeup department has upped its game, much like the video production side has, because that looked pretty good. Now, up in this area here, you have a good deep bruising color. You got these little, scuffs and stuff. and the purples. This part down here is where I start to think maybe makeup. But this looks really legit up here. So, not sure how that all went. But the line of the night was right after he got hit with the 3 Super Bowl rings. Michael Cole looks to Pat McAfee and he says, "Are those Super Bowl rings? What am I asking you for?" I just started cracking up. I was like, damn, that's some pretty cold shit right there, man. Let's put it this way. Whoops, wrong button. Pat McAfee's a lot closer than Michael Cole will ever be to being a Super Bowl champion. So, but I get it. It was all in jest, and it was funny, and it got a pop out of me. So, and I'm just now thinking to myself, I don't know if you guys got to see that screen. Shit. This new setup, when I do it this way, is a little bit different. Requires a lot more thinking than I really have in me. Let's try it again. All this time I'm over here showing you guys stuff that you probably weren't seeing, so sorry about that. Anyway, I was talking about the bruising going on up in here, the fact that you got these scabs going already, the cuts and stuff like that. This all looks pretty damn legit. This part down here, not so much. But again, the makeup job on this was just freaking stellar. So, hats off to whoever made that, whether he took one for the team or whether it was a makeup person, or maybe it's a combination. Maybe he got dinged a little bit and then they just wanted to make it look more dramatic. Whichever way, all I can say is good stuff. Well done. Keep it up. All right, now we're back. Got a lot more production to do when I'm on my own like that. Real quickly, let me check on our comments before we move into the draft itself. Ken Rogers, not a fan of the draft. I'll admit that it hasn't been super exciting, but I'll tell you what I liked about it a lot, and we'll get into it with the draft. But the NXT talent that gets called up, apparently they truly don't know they're getting called up. And those reactions are so powerful. And for that alone, I say keep it going. Now, they could have done a little bit more to make the draft itself exciting and some better twists and turns, but maybe next time around you're going to let the champions be draftable. I don't know. Yeah, I know I bump all the wrong buttons all the time, but this time it was on my end. I am bracing myself for the show, indeed. Well, I guess this is the approved apparel now for any time there's a draft, right? You have to wear one of these. I actually had a little situation. Yeah, the twins jumped me when I came in the door, and twins being a couple of pound puppies that I got that are like 10 years old and weigh about 20 pounds apiece, a brother, sister. And they're always excited when I come home for some reason. I guess they think they're going to get fed, and they just jumped all over me, and I feel like, I threw my neck out pretty bad, so I put this on. I just can't do a press conference about a draft and not wear one now. I feel like I'm going to be out of uniform. Yes, Ken, this is totally a Tony Khan mockery that we got going here. So there goes that. Glad you guys picked up on it, though. All right, let's talk the draft itself now. For the most part, I didn't think it was that bad. I don't know if they've updated. Let me update this one more time. I am on Fightful, I believe. All right, round one. Raw takes Imperium, which is now just 2 people. And here's an interesting thing. So they take 2 people because of a fallout from last week. We all saw that. No big surprise. That also explains why it happened the way it did. So you get Gunther and you get Ludwig Kaiser. Keep that in mind, though. It's going to play into the story here. SmackDown takes Jade Cargill. All right. Sure, why not? WWE Raw takes Damage Control, which they need to change the name up. Without Bayley, it's not Damage Control. So at some point, I'd like to see them change the name, but they probably aren't going to. And then SmackDown takes Kevin Owens, which I thought he was on Raw for some reason. But they're like, he's going to remain on SmackDown, as I just thought they kept on going back and forth like it didn't matter anyway. So that's round one. Round two. The number one pick in round two is CM Punk. Yeah, okay. Second round, first pick, damaged arm, older guy. Go to SmackDown. Their pick is The Pride. Bobby Lashley, Angelo Dawkins, Montez Ford, and B-Fab. Back to Raw. The return of Braun Strowman. That kind of makes me sit back and go, wonder what that's going to mean. Because I really figured he would be part of this Uncle Howdy thing, but now I'm not so sure. And then SmackDown signs Tiffany Stratton. It will now be Tiffy time on Fridays. And again, another call up, and it's good to see because she's a top talent. That girl is really good. Round three, first pick, Raw. LWO, which includes Rey Mysterio, Cruz del Toro, Joaquin Wilde, Zelina Vega, Dragon Lee, and Carlito. Let's go back a moment, shall we? To round one. First pick overall, Imperium, Gunther, and Kaiser. No Vinci because there was a falling out. He's not part of the group. But now all of a sudden in round three, Carlito is part of the group, even though they had a clear falling out a week ago. That's where I have a little problem. If you're going to go storyline, but you can't pick and choose in the same show an hour apart. That really, didn't sit well. I get you want them on the same brand so they can continue the story, but then draft Carlito. All right, enough of that. I'm sure everybody else in the internet world is going to be beating the shit out of that one. Justifiably. All right, WWE SmackDown now goes for Legado del Fascismo with Santos Escobar, Humberto Carrillo, Angel Garza, and Elektra Lopez. That brings us to Raw, taking Drew McIntyre, and boy, was he pissed that he went to round three and not even the first pick of round three. And as he was telling everyone how pissed he was, CM Punk was sitting up in the skybox telling him he's a bitch. Last pick was SmackDown, Shinsuke Nakamura. That concludes round three, brings us to round four. Judgment Day will stay on Raw. That's Finn Balor, Dominic Mysterio, and JD McDonough. Of course, that doesn't mention Rhea Ripley. And she's not the champion, so what the fuck? Gonna be curious. SmackDown gets Naomi. Raw takes Ilya Dragunov from NXT. SmackDown takes Chelsea Green and Piper Niven, and let's just say that Adam Page's reaction backstage was classic. Round 5. Raw selects the New Day. SmackDown takes Pretty Deadly. And here's where it got good for me. Raw selects Lyra Valkyrie. And her reaction was priceless. And I'm so happy for her. I've been a fan of hers. She's one of the few that I stop and watch when I'm going through NXT and I'm fast forwarding through most of the stuff. I watch her stuff. I think she's really good. And that reaction was awesome. It's a good feeling. Again, for that and another one we'll talk about, it's worth it to sit through some of the other stuff. SmackDown then gets the final pick of round 5 and takes Candice LeRae and Indy Hartwell. That brings us to round 6. Raw goes with the Final Testament. I feel like it's a wasted pick because I don't see any of these people being there 6 months from now. Karrion Kross, the AOP, Scarlett, and Paul Ellering. I'll be amazed if they're there in 6 months. I just don't feel like it's getting over. SmackDown then selects DIY of Gargano and Tommaso Ciampa. Raw takes Bronson Reed. I'm a big fan of Big Bronson. And then finally, SmackDown takes Blair Davenport. And again, the emotion when she hears her name called. Didn't know it was going to be called. So I'm a fan of that. And to be able to experience that moment with them that way. Again, I know some people don't like it. I say we keep it. Doesn't really matter. They're going to do what they're going to do. Blazed Radio is in the house. What's up, McCoy? Yeah, I decided to do this one. I slept way too long this afternoon. I took a nap, and I was like, wow, I wiped out. And I was like, well, I'm going to have to be staying up a little later then. So I figured I'd do this. What do you think of it, though? Are you good with the draft, or are you sick of the draft? I had mine on. I took it off a few seconds ago. You got to go back to the beginning. I wasn't going to wear the neck brace the whole time. I just wore it for the first 10 minutes as a goof. Yeah, with the Raw and SmackDown wrestlers, Ken, I do think they know what's happening in advance. I kind of wish they wouldn't, though. I think you'll get better reactions if people don't know that they're switching brands. And of course, some of those reactions might not be the ones you want. It's like, I don't want to go to SmackDown. Oh, I don't know. Shinsuke has done pretty well for himself in WWE, I think. So, and he's also opened himself up now to a whole new audience that never would have seen his work if he stayed in New Japan. So, I don't think for a moment that it was a bad move for him to be here. Yeah, there's not a lot of movement from roster to roster. You're right about that. And I think it's more for the call-ups in NXT. And you couldn't do a 3-day show calling up NXT guys and girls because then there'd be nobody in NXT, and not all of them are ready. A lot of people are buzzing about the fact that Roxanne didn't get called up and Lyra did, sorry. I can see it. You know, I think Roxanne's doing really well, but I do think there's a little more time needed there. Well, that's the thing. The Final Testament, Ken, I've never been an AOP fan. Now, maybe it's because they've never been pushed right, perhaps. When you come out with Paul Ellering, the automatic vibe that anyone that knows wrestling is going to be thinking is LOD. So could you have brought Ellering out with the Ascension? Yeah, that could have worked. AOP? Nah, no. AOP is more closely associated with the Shield, so far as vibe goes, than they are with the Legion of Doom. And Ellering will be forever tied to the Legion of Doom. So unless you're talking about a barbarian and warlord type, or a demolition type, or ascension type, then Ellering's just not going to be the right, that's square peg, round hole. It just ain't going to work. That's how I feel about it. Now, so far as being used properly, Karrion Kross has been around a minute now. If he hasn't been used properly, and I'm not 100% sure he hasn't been, at some point in time, it's up to the talent. Let's put it this way. There was a guy that was in charge of some male models a couple of years ago. I can't remember his name now because, now he's actually a star, and he made that happen. He wasn't being used right. But he is now because he made them use him right, because he took that shit burger that they served him and turned it into a sirloin. You have to be able to do that if you're going to be in the WWE. You can get away with lesser ability and, get your paycheck at AEW. That's fine. They got tons of people over there that are just average. They have some people over there that are above average that don't play above average because they're not motivated to. But the reality is, if you're going to make it in the WWE, you've got to be, A, self-motivated, B, you've got to find that way to get over with the crowd. And even if they give you a shit burger, damn, the list is long of people who have taken that crap role and made it a main event. Whether it's Bryan Danielson you want to talk about, hell, even Finn Balor, who also just signed a contract. Guys that are too small, and they were back in the Vince days. You got to remember that too. And Vince doesn't like small people. And they managed to push their way through and hold World Heavyweight Championship titles. So it's there to be had. But to your point, I don't feel like any of those names have done anything that's they're not going to be the next Judgment Day. And in 6 months' time, I don't think they're going to be around. Just my prediction. What's happening, Judd? Prime Time's in the house as well. Welcome aboard. So overall, I thought the draft did what it had to do. I was real happy for the NXT folks and their true emotional moments there. Ilya Dragunov, of course, was also selected. I'm going to have to wait a little longer. I don't watch a lot of his stuff on NXT. I just find him so small that to push him as a heavyweight champion, it's happened before, I know. I was cool when Bryan Danielson did it. I mean, hell, CM Punk's not a big guy either, but he's big enough. But Ilya Dragunov, man, every time I see him in the ring, and I've never seen the man in person, but every time I see him in the ring, he is a fly compared to everyone he's wrestling. Speaking of wrestling, and we mentioned AEW, a couple of things I was going to touch on. Number one, Darby Allin apparently kissed a school bus. I'm not sure what made him do that. And I think it was outside the United States. Somebody out there might know better about that than me, but I saw a picture of him. And wow, you would have thought that would have been the picture of him after the dumbass tried jumping a car over his house. But no, apparently crossing the street or something. Didn't get all the details other than he got hit by a bus, and it looks like he got hit by a bus. And then this one was not shocking to me, and not even disappointing, really, because I think it's probably the right move in this person's case, and that is that Camille Brickhouse, who I did used to watch quite a bit of in NWA before COVID and maybe shortly after COVID, but that's when NWA just became unwatchable. And I was impressed with her progression. I like, from where she started out as the silent powerhouse behind Nick Aldis and never said a word, to the point where when she first spoke, it was a big deal. They were going to have it. They announced that she was going to speak next week and all this kind of stuff. And then she just went on this long run as the NWA Women's Champion. Were they great matches? Most of them weren't even really good matches, but you could see progress being made week after week after week. To find out she signed with AEW, there was a part of me that almost wanted to be like, really? And then the other part of me is like, you know what? Better off, because I just don't think she could get past the talent in the NXT. Now, that's not to knock that. Again, she's a tremendous athlete. There's nobody going to tell you different. But being a great athlete, being a great professional wrestler, two different animals. It helps to be a great athlete, of course. But that's 15, 25%. Dusty Rhodes was not a great athlete by any stretch of the imagination, but he was a phenomenal professional wrestler. So I don't care how many muscles you got. I don't care how long your cardio will let you go. If you can't put on a program inside of a ring, and if you can't connect with the audience and bring us all into what you're doing, then all that other shit doesn't mean a thing. And I never felt like Camille brought me into a match. I liked seeing the progress, and I noticed the progress, but that's in the mechanics of what she was doing. I've always found that she's just kind of a nice person, but not all that exciting, I guess, is the best word I can come up with right now. So her going to AEW is going to get her a big paycheck. Tony will probably push her to the moon because she's got muscles and she's a relatively large female in the sense that I don't know how tall she is, but she's pretty tall. She's close to 6 foot, if not. And she's put together well, and she can move well, and kind of replaces his Jade Cargill slot that's empty right now in many ways, because Jade was pretty damn green, as we all know, when she got to AEW. And while Camille has a lot more experience than Jade did, performance-wise, a slight step up, but not a massive step up. Here's the downside. There's nobody there that's going to develop her. They're just not. I mean, they've got some of the agents and some of the, folks that have been around the business a minute, but it's not like the NXT. What happens in NXT to get people up to the next level, I just don't know that she would have made it. And I got a feeling in my mind, she didn't know either. And I think she didn't bank on herself, because while Tony probably offered her a better payday today, I feel like, especially at her age, you would have rolled the dice with the NXT brand if you believed that, hey, I'm going to show these motherfuckers what it's all about, and I'm going to take care of business, and I'm going to be main eventing WrestleMania. What do I know? Just my personal impressions of how it went down. I could be right, could be wrong. End of the day, I do think she probably made the right choice for her. Because in my mind, I think if she had gone to NXT, it probably wouldn't have gone well. She may never have been called up to the main roster, and I wouldn't be shocked if that happened. Now at AEW, she's on a national platform. Only 700,000 to 800,000 people will ever see you on a good night, but that's okay. That's a whole lot more than you were being seen in the NWA. That's for damn sure. See if there's any other. Nope, that's about it for the. That's what I had for WrestleChat tonight. So thank you guys. Hope you guys enjoyed the draft. Again, we got one more night to look forward to, although I'm not going to watch that one live. That'll definitely be something I record and watch later. NXT and the draft, I can't imagine how bad that's going to go. I don't imagine anything good coming from that. Hence, I will record it, and then I'll watch it later on. So, my neck is feeling much better now. Thank you guys for asking. I appreciate it. Tony Khan. I want to be a wrestler. It would have been funnier if they actually dropped him on his head. He's already 5'4"? He'd have been 5'2". Meltzer driver. Ay. All right, everybody. Well, have a great rest of your night. We'll be back and do some more stuff here in the near future. Oh, and by the way, this Friday, 5 o'clock p.m., if you haven't been keeping up with XWF, go back and catch up, because it's going to start getting pretty exciting. I think you'll be happy. And we're going to be seeing an update on what happened to Hulk Hogan after Jerry Lawler threw the fireball in his face. There's been some damage. In the meantime, I'll see you guys right back here on the Nation Network with some more WrestleChat in the near future. Good night. I actually watched a little bit of AEW, not a lot. Just enough to remind me why I don't watch it. Oh, this is already funny. Just the headline. The list of moves and actions that are now banned from AEW or need to be approved by the company.
Maybe that's why Nash is pissed off, because he went for Brock and Austin and not try to duplicate him.
Well, it'd be easier to duplicate him. You only have to learn 5 moves.
Like you said, and we've all been saying, Tony Khan, you need a hierarchy, and he gets one, and then we make fun of it.
Because he's sitting back there talking about the Brock match, and it's finally we had a wrestling match. Finally, we got 2 guys telling a story. They weren't outside in the ring the whole time. One of them
Was he not watching the same match as we were?
Yeah, those games, man. I would say, like, for me, like the best ones, I would say are like the ones where they try to get a certain like time.
This is my entire IT team right here on screen. Everybody.